beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today I'm doing a little follow-up to my recent Catching Up with ColourPop video that was mostly unboxing and swatching the new Tangled and Toy Story collections. And I also did some liquid blush comparisons in that video. So today I'm going to use a few of the products from both of those collaboration collections. And I'm also going to show you a few palette comparison swatches. So you're getting a little tutorial, get ready with me, and also some comparison swatches today. Just FYI, I do have a little bit of a base makeup down. I'm wearing this Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Tint, one of my favorites, the Flower Serum Concealer, and a little bit of this ColourPop Liquid Blush. This is in the shade Super Shy. So I am wearing these three things already, but we're going to use a couple of Toy Story and Tangled items to complete my look, and then we'll get into the comparison swatches. I'm going to start with some of this liquid highlighter. This is the Mother Gothel shade from the Tangled collection, and this is definitely one of my favorite pieces from both Toy Story and Tangled. It's definitely the one I've used the most out of everything. This is just a nice subtle glow, but it's definitely still there. It's just the right type of shade for me that it really blends in with my blush and looks a little bit glowy, gives me that casually sweaty cheek that I'm looking for, but it's not super metallic. There's not any little glitters. It just melts right in, easy to blend. It's what I'm looking for, is something that looks good and is easy to use. Next, I'm going to apply this Yeehaw gloss. This is from the Toy Story collection. Obviously, this is the Jessie shade, and this is my favorite of the gloss shades, but I can kind of take it and leave it with all of the lip colors from both of these collections. So this one's pretty. It's just not life-changing or anything. Next, I'm going to do some eyeshadow, priming my lids with my favorite eye base. It's the matte eye primer from Ulta Beauty. And I'm going to be using this Best Day Ever palette. This is the Tangled palette. First, just setting my primer with the shade 18th Birthday. It's a nice skin tone match for me. And then I'm going to use the shade Eugene. This is probably not a surprise that this is the shade I'm reaching for. It's very similar to the shade Shroom from my Flora Story palette, and I love a shade like this. For me personally, it's just such an easy starting point. And even if I just do this on my lids for a very like no makeup type of look, then I just find this shade really flattering and it does a nice little contour. But I'm using it as a setup for a purpley eyeshadow look. So I'm going to start adding some purple with this shade Mother Knows Best. And I'm really focusing this more on the outer part of my lid and the outer part of my crease. And then it's finally time to add my favorite shade from this palette. This is a really rich, bright purple shimmer shade called All Those Days. And I'm using my fingertip to apply this on the outer half of my lid. I am going to blend a brighter shade on the inner half of my lid, but I want this to be a really prominent part of my eye look. So I'm going to do that darker purple on the outer part of my eye, and then I'm going to take this really soft pastel purple, and I'm going to really build that up around the inner corner of my eye. So I'm just using a small flat detail brush to pack that color on so I can get a high intensity, but I don't want it going all over the place. I really want to control the placement. So this little Fantasy Cosmetica brush is perfect for this area. And now, going back to Toy Story, I'm going to use one of the Jelly Much shadows. This is the pink one called Ham It Up, and I'm applying that on the blank lid space that's left in between those two purple shadows so that I can get a nice, bright, pink metallic pop there. I think this looks super springtimey. These colors together are just very floral, very orchid, and I love a super shiny metallic lid anytime, but I think that this pink shade really brightens and opens up the eye as well. I just went back and did a little bit more blending around the edges so that I can get a nice smooth transition. I didn't want to add too much depth and darkness. I wanted this to be a very light and airy, light and bright type of look. So I'm using a little bit of this soft, shifty duochrome shade called Max. This has a little bit of a pink shift, so I can add some brightness and some highlight, and it really works within this pink and purple color palette. Then I curled my lashes, added this new Lancome mascara that I've been testing, and that's it. That's the finished look. I really wanted this to be fresh and springy and colorful without being too heavy and overwhelming. I will say, after using this Tangled palette a few times this month, I do typically end up with a look sort of like this because I don't love to use those pearlescent glitters. I tend to end up with a very purpley centric look like this, which I love. Purple's my favorite eyeshadow color to wear, but it has ended up being maybe a little bit more one note for me than I originally expected. But I do still stand by the fact that this is one of my favorite ColourPop palette color stories that's come out in a while. So it's, it's two sides of the same coin. It's a little bit one note, but it's also a note that I really enjoy, as will be evidenced by these comparison swatches. I'm going to do comparisons for both palettes, so I'm going to start with the Tangled one first. And a lot of my favorite palettes are great comparisons for this one. Starting first with a throwback to the old Alva palette from Odin's Eye. These are very similar. This was the first one that came to mind for me because of that pink, purple, yellow type of color story. And Alva is missing the intensity of that bright purple shade, which is my favorite shade in the Best Day Ever palette, but it makes up for it with a more intense yellow. So if you already have Alva in your collection, maybe, you could consider skipping the Tangled palette. Next, I'm going to combine a couple of palettes. This is the Pretty Guardian and Heavy Petal palette combo, both ColourPop palettes as well. And this is also pretty similar. Again, we are missing that intense purple shade that I really love, but you could definitely get some incredibly similar eye looks if you already have the Pretty Guardian and Heavy Petal palettes sitting on the shelf. Consider grabbing for those instead of adding a new palette. Although, you know what? If you're a Tangled stan, I'm not here to judge. If you end up with some duplicate shades, it does happen, but I'm just trying to provide the resource here for you if you want to shop your own stash instead of literally shopping. The ColourPop Play It Jewel palette is the best match in my opinion. It's the only one that's really matching the energy of that deeper purple metallic shade. And again, no surprise, these are all palettes that I've really enjoyed. This is just a type of color story that I tend to be drawn in by. So, hey, maybe you already have some of these shades. Next, let's do a few comparisons for this Toy Story palette. I had the feeling as soon as I opened this palette that this whole sort of rainbow with a bunch of light neutrals was a common theme among particularly their collaboration palettes. The first thing that popped to my head was the Bon Voyage palette, and this is a pretty similar color story. I would say not as many one-to-one exact dupes as I was expecting, but definitely a very similar color story here. You could absolutely pull a lot of the same looks from these two palettes. That green shade is the one that's glaringly different to me, but I think this is also quite similar to the ColourPop Pokemon palette. This is the Palette Town palette. This is even more similar, in my opinion. I think that we have even more dead on matches here. Of course, that green shade's still a little different, the purple's a little different. But if you did the same eye look on one eye with The Toys Are Here and one eye with Palette Town, I don't think that most people would be able to tell the difference. And that's, I think, more legitimate way of dupe testing, in my opinion, is the actual wear of a palette. The last comparison that I have for you today is the Fade into Hue palette and Star Wars palettes combined. Someone specifically asked to see the red from the Star Wars palette and the red from the Toy Story palette, so I am gonna do a little bit of a close-up on that just because somebody did specifically want to see those two shades. Overall, this is probably the best set of exact matches. So if you already have Fade into Hue and Star Wars, you are probably covered. I do think that the Star Wars red shimmer is a little bit more intense and silky feeling to the touch, but color-wise, very, very similar. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you found this video informative, helpful, or at least fun to watch along with. I would love to hear what you think about these collections, about the comparisons, which pieces are your favorites. I always love to hear what you think about things too. So make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! My little yellow springtime flower earrings. Focus. Okay, okay. Ooh, that's pretty. Just, huh? Okay. I got a mosquito bite right here, like, more than a week ago, and it's still just a little red spot there. Summer for you. Although technically I think it's still spring. It feels like summer though. I'm tired. And I even had an extra coffee and I'm still like wiped out. I don't know what the deal is. But school's almost over. There's a lot of, if you don't have school age children and like particularly elementary and middle school, I almost said middle school aged children, they have so many activities and spirit days and tests and teacher appreciation weeks. And I participate in those things because I think it's important, but it's a lot and I'm tired. I'm ready for it to be done. But you know what? I appreciate my child's teachers so much, so it's worth it. And however tired I am, they are dealing with like 20 little kids all day. So I realize that I have it pretty easy, but I'm ready for summer break. I'm sure you guys are too. All right, that's it. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks for watching me and my purple eyeshadow. Although I did use pink. I did use an out of the comfort zone color. So I expect my trophy in the mail any day now. Okay, love your face. Bye.